Do you remember the first time you held a controller? That you moved that character on screen? That you beat a level? That you experienced what a video game was for the first time? No? Well, that's unfortunate, because I do. Video games have been a part of my life for a very long time. The first console I played on was the PlayStation 2, but my heart belongs to the Wii, Wii U, and Switch. The memories that I have with these consoles will never be beat. But we are rapidly approaching the next era of Nintendo. As much as I hate to admit it, the Switch is old, and it's not going to be long until the next console replaces it. But before it is officially gone, I want to take a look at it and see what about it we are going to remember 5, 10, 30 years down the line. Will we mostly remember the good things about it, or the bad things? And you know how the saying goes, a console is only worth as much as the games that are on it. And I think the Switch is certainly going to win in that category. But I'm still going to take a look at the console itself, both its physical and digital attributes. How will the Nintendo Switch be remembered? Let's look at the physical attributes, because I think it's pretty safe to say the Switch's design is iconic. In fact, it's been iconic since launch day. The classic red and blue controllers are a genius design. It's the sort of fun look that you would expect from a Nintendo console. It's not a super modern, minimalistic look. However, there are options for people who prefer a more basic design. Controllers are more important than a lot of people think. And as much fun as we make about Nintendo and their goofy looking controllers, you see any of them and you immediately think of what console they go to and what game you played with them. And to be honest, from a distance, I have a hard time telling the difference between Xbox and PlayStation controllers. Once I see them up close I can tell, but for the most part they kind of all morph together. And I'm not saying change is always better, but controllers do have a lot more influence than most people think. Something that Nintendo didn't even do was put their logo on the Joy-Cons. They knew it wouldn't be necessary because they don't resemble anything else. But the Joy-Cons are not without flaw. Besides being a little small to hold, they have been plagued by Joy-Con drift since day one. That has always been the biggest complaint about the Nintendo Switch systems. And although Nintendo has tried to fix the problem with updated controllers and offering a free repair service, I still think Joy-Con drift will be remembered just as much as the janky motion controls of the Wii. Although there was a certain charm to that jankiness, wasn't there? The Switch also boasts its absolute best feature, its hybrid. It is both a stationary and a mobile console, so in that sense it is not only the successor of the Wii U, but also the 3DS in some ways. But since it is hybrid, it has changed the future of Nintendo consoles forever. If they ever go back to making two separate consoles, one stationary and one mobile, that is only going to be a massive downgrade. The Nintendo Switch was technically the first hybrid console ever. It's also possibly the most innovative console. The Nintendo Switch will go down in history if only for being a hybrid. But there is still more to it than that. There is also the digital aspect of the console. If you grew up playing the Wii, you are about to get enormous nostalgia. In 3, 2, 1. You do not get that level of nostalgia with the Nintendo Switch. You just don't. The Switch has a nice menu, don't get me wrong. It is quick to load, easy to navigate, easy to understand, but there's no background music. There's no unique animations for anything. And if this is technically the successor of the 3DS, you would think you could possibly set themes. But no! You get a choice between light mode and dark mode. If I'm going to remember anything about the Nintendo Switch menu, it's going to be how much I wish it resembled the Wii and Wii U menus. The Wii U's menu was so underrated. There's not even a Me channel on the Switch, you have to go through system settings to access that. So I do understand simplifying the menu to make it load quicker and to make it easier to navigate. The Switch's home menu is definitely lacking in character. There's nothing about it that stands out or feels unique. And that could be due to Nintendo rebranding from the Wii to the Switch. They've slowly been moving away from Mii's and many other things that made the Wii era so recognizable. And when they removed something from the Wii era, such as home menu music, they didn't bother to replace it. Other than possibly the snap sound effect, the Switch has no sound effects, no music, nothing, which leaves a big gap for the Switch. The Mii channel and Wii Shop music is so recognizable. That style of music is a part of the Wii culture. The Switch has none of that. And the choice that Nintendo made to not include any sort of music still boggles me. We even discovered unused eShop music for the Switch. Take a listen. I'm going to talk more in depth about the eShop in a bit, but the Switch's eShop has no music. It is completely silent. And why they didn't include music? I have no idea. I can't think of a single good reason why you wouldn't include background music. But besides that, there's not really much else about the eShop to complain about. It's not that insanely different from the Wii U's eShop, other than being insanely slow sometimes. It's alright. There still isn't really any character to it at all though. But like I said earlier, a console is only worth as much as the games that are on it. And if anything, the games will be the reason the Nintendo Switch is remembered. The Wii and Wii U's menus were almost a game of their own. There was so much to do and look at and mess with that you could have fun with the console without even putting in a disc. But like we've discussed, the Switch does not have that luxury. It will be almost completely carried by the games themselves, which is just fine for the Switch considering you can play those games anywhere. But what games will go down in history with the Switch, such as Mario Galaxy has with the Wii? I don't really need to go into too much detail on games. I'm not trying to make this video a review or retrospective, and I think I can probably assume most people know what games are on the Switch. In these past 7 years, it has built up a large library, and although I definitely will remember playing a lot of the games on the Switch, I feel like a lot of the memories are going to be waiting for the games. Something that I do with the Switch that I never did with the Wii or Wii U was watch game presentations. I never watched them before the Switch because A, I don't think they had Nintendo Directs for the Wii. I could be wrong. And B, if they did exist, I didn't know it until the Switch. The first Direct was in 2011, and over time they have grown to be such a big part of Nintendo's brand. Instead of announcing stuff at a conference alongside Xbox and PlayStation, like E3, they host a live stream for themselves. And in doing so, they don't only keep their products away from being compared or overshadowed by Xbox or PlayStation, but it becomes so much more personal for each consumer. I don't feel like I'm watching a big billion-dollar company advertise a bunch of products. I'm watching somebody show me a bunch of fun stuff they've made for me. And because of the Directs, I feel like some games are going to be remembered more for their build-up and hype than the game itself. Tears of the Kingdom is probably the best example of that. For 6 years we knew basically nothing except for a few very cryptic trailers. And then for a little while, they became the signature ending of the Nintendo Directs. We knew what the last thing to be shown was going to be. And then when its release finally came, they did the big midnight launch event. And Nintendo knows, it's not so much the game as much as it is the hype that sells. And I'm not saying Tears of the Kingdom didn't live up to its expectations. In a lot of ways, it exceeded mine. There's a whole feature they didn't even advertise. I'm saying that the build-up to the launch itself can sometimes be the most important part of the game. Every game on the Switch will be remembered by somebody, but I think there are some games that will be remembered more than others. Mario Odyssey, besides from obviously being the big 3D Mario game, will be remembered with the Switch for its launch as well. It was used in advertising for the Switch before we even knew what the game was. And if you think forgetting a game as a Switch game is weird, take a look at Breath of the Wild. That was originally a Wii U game, but because it was launched on the same day as the Switch and treated like a launch title, some people don't even know it's on the Wii U. And then we have games like Pikmin 4 and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which, funny enough, were both released last year. And even though we waited 10 years for the next Pikmin game, and 15 years or somewhere along that line for the next 2D Mario game that wasn't part of the new series, these games didn't have that big of a gap between when they were revealed to when they were launched. Nintendo didn't have that long with these games to build up hype. And I'm glad they didn't reveal it and then wait 3 years before they released it. I would much rather have it the way it is. And although there was a lot of excitement surrounding these games, it was nowhere as large as it was for Tears of the Kingdom. And that's not just because this is a Zelda game and that's a Pikmin game, although I'm sure that did have something to do with it. But Mario Wonder's release also felt a little small compared to Tears of the Kingdom. And that's a Mario game! And so I think a lot of the reason behind why a game is remembered, and why it's remembered with the Pacific console, has a lot to do with what the game's launch was like. Because mark my words...
Why do they say mark my words? I mean, they just mean listen to my words. Why don't they just say listen to my words?
If Pikmin 4 gets DLC, and they release the Switch 2 next year, and Pikmin 4 gets ported to the Switch 2, it will be remembered more for that console than it will the Switch. The same with Mario Kart 8, which is the most sold Switch game despite being a Wii U port. Now, of course, there are a lot of factors to that. It's been the only Mario Kart game for the past 10 years, and the Booster Course Pass has basically doubled the entire game. But you can at least see the comparison that I'm making. Now, of course, the Switch is not gone yet. We don't know for sure if there is going to be another console anytime soon. According to Nintendo's president, the Switch will at least continue to be their main console during 2024. And I'm going to use not all of that time, but a lot of it gaining memories with the Nintendo Switch. So I'm predicting the Nintendo Switch is going to be remembered in a pretty positive way. It would be weird otherwise. And despite its flaws in its digital aspect, I think looking back at the Nintendo Switch is going to be very nostalgic for me and a lot of other people. And of course, if we apply all of my theories for what makes a game a huge success, Metroid Prime 4 is set up to be the biggest success of all time. They've been building anticipation for that game for years. The moment that game gets a trailer and a release date, will open the floodgates so large it'll be unlike anything that's ever happened to the Metroid franchise. What aspects about the Nintendo Switch do you think will become very nostalgic in the future? Let me know in the comments. If you want to support my channel, you can like and subscribe, but that's all I'm going to say.